All right, today we're going to take one of them jars of leaven and we're going to make basic sourdough white bread. I've done a little alteration to it just because I want to keep the bread a little more moist. I want it to be a little softer, more like a sandwich bread. So the crust will be a little more tender and all that. So anyways, we'll go through this, what I did. And I'll have the description, recipe, whatever you want to call it, in the comments below, the description below. But anyways, what we're going to do, we're going to use 950 grams of this white, unbleached artesian bread flour. I'm going to use 500 grams of water, which I have at the 95 degree temperature. I'm going to use 1 egg, and I'm going to use 28 grams of lard, real lard. You can use oil if you want, but I use real lard, and I'm going to melt that. And then my jar of leaven. So anyways, let's get started. First thing I do, turn on the scale, and I want to zero it out to my grams with my measuring cup on, and I want to get my 28 grams of lard in there because I'm going to stick it, since it's winter time, I'm going to stick it on the wood stove and let her melt down. $22, $25, oh, $29. Well, for all practical purposes, that was good, but I'm trying to be demonstrative here and show you the exact way. So anyways, let's get this on the wood stove. Alright, I've got my egg, and the way I do this, which makes it real easy to mix, let me get my bowl on here while I talk, and I get it zeroed out. Alright, my flour. When I'm mixing flour, when I'm mixing my bread dough, I use half the flour that the recipe calls for. So if this is 950, half of that is 450, and half of 50 is 25, so 475 grams of my flour. So we'll put that in. And for those of you counting, this scoop is a half a cup each. There's 413. We're shooting for 475. 60. Is that, oh wow, straight on, 475. Okay. And then we zero it out here. I want 18 grams of salt. 11, 14, 16, 17, 18. All right, 18 grams of salt. And the reason I do this is because it's way easier to mix with only half the flour versus dumping the whole batch of flour in. So, anyways, 500 grams. There's 3. There's 4. $96, $496. 500 dead on. And I would suggest, until you know what your flour's like, hold back a little bit of the water so you don't get it too wet to work with. especially if you're new and you're not used to working with wet dough. So anyways, now I take it off the scale. I can give it a little mix with my wooden spoon. You can see how thin this is right now. Way easier to work with. Okay, we'll add my egg. Which, by the way, these are fresh from the farm chicken eggs. Note the dark yellow. Alright, break that up just a little bit. I believe it actually makes the bread a little bit yellow, it's that dark. Alright, my oil is now melted, so we'll add that in. My lard, I mean. It's all oil to me. Okay, let's mix that up a little bit. Okay. Doing pretty good there. Alright, now we add our leaven, which, like I said, I showed you. We mix this up. It's half, well, no, it's not half. It's 45 grams of original starter, and then I add 45 grams of white flour, which is the same as what I'm baking with, and 45 grams of whole wheat flour. Let it set overnight. I usually mix this up in the evening, and then in the morning it's ready to use. You can see it went way up to about here and then drop back down. So now we're ready to use it. It's a good active leaven or levain or whatever you want to call it. And like I said, I usually get, well, not usually, I always get 5 jars of this. And I guess I forgot to weigh it, because I really don't weigh it. I just use what makes out of this. And that's how I also come up with my water content. I guess you could go by percentages, but I haven't taken the time to do that yet. I just kind of go by seat of my pants and say, this works. Now I'm just passing it on. More than likely you're new. Percentages don't mean much to you anyways at this point. You'll learn them as you go. Alright, we mix the leaven in to my half the flour, salt, egg, lard. Now we're ready to add the rest of the flour. See, that's way easier to work with than a whole batch of flour and trying to add in. Alright. Now we'll put our scale back there. Whoops. Get it over here. Maybe you can see it. I don't know. Okay, we're at 0. Now I want another 475, which is the other half of the 950. $430, 50, 60, 74, 75, 475. All right, time to mix that up. And this is going to be a wet dough, but it'll come together. show you how this works. I think you'll be really happy with the results. The loaf of bread, well, actually 2 loaves of bread that you get from this, because this recipe gives you 2 nice loaves of bread. Alright, we'll keep mixing that up a little bit. Try and get all that dry flour to kind of stick in here. Like I said, it's wet, it's shaggy wet, you can see it. Not to worry. This is what you want. Okay, next thing we're going to do is turn it on to my kneading board. So bear with me a second here. Okay, now you want to turn this dough out onto a flat surface, no flour. I bought one of these boards at a garage sale, so it's become my kneading board. So anyways, I turn it out. It's not all mixed yet, but it's good enough so that I don't have a bunch of flour left in there, as you can see. Alright, another thing that comes in handy is one of these, I don't know what they're even called. Some come in plastic, some in metal. But anyways, I use it to scrape things down. And I also use it for mixing up the dough, which you can use your hands also. But basically, what I do next is just kind of work this thing together. It wants to stick to the board or your countertop or whatever. But after a few minutes of working it, it won't. Or at least it won't as much. Like I said, this is a nice moist, wet dough. But you want it to grow with your sourdough. You want that crumb in there. But you also want a little bit of softness so that it makes a good piece of sandwich bread. Alright, I won't bore you with this because after you've chased this around a while, what else is there to see? So give me a minute. I'll work this until it gets there, and then I'll show you where we're at. Okay, as you see, it's starting to thicken up a bit. Now there's several methods that people use to get this going, or to get it, you know, as a dough. One, you can just knead it. But it, you know, when it's wet like that, it's a little messy. It takes a little longer. The other one is called a stretch and fold. And that works well. After you've got it to this point, you know you've got it all mixed up. It's not as sticky to the board. I mean, it is still sticky, but not like it was when we started. And what you do, and you still need to let this rise about 4 hours from now. Okay? So, what we usually do is take this, see if I can get you on camera a little better. There we go. Take this, and we want to put it back in the bowl. Okay? That's where this scraper comes in really handy, because it helps get it up off of that board. Alright, so now we have it back in the bowl. We're going to cover it and let it set for about a half an hour right now. And then we're going to do the stretch and fold. I'll show you what that's like. Now, if you don't mind, if you don't like how wet this is, use less water. Your bread will be a little drier. The crumb may not be as big. You never know. I mean, it's, like I said, everything is different. There is no set way. It took me almost 3 years to figure it out, trying to follow everybody else's methods until I figured out that it doesn't work for everybody like that. So this is the way it works for me. It's a good starting point, especially for beginners. So let me cover it, and we'll come back and do the stretch and fold. All right, it's been that first half hour. Take our cover off, and we're going to show you the stretch and fold. You know, clean hands, of course. But what I do is go through and I just pull that dough off the sides of this bowl, and I go all the way around. And just kind of pull it to the middle. There we go. Okay, then what you want to do is get up underneath that thing and grab a hold, stretch it up. You don't want to rip it, you want to stretch it. And it's sticky. That's what it's supposed to be like. Okay, stretch it, fold it over. Now you go to the next side, turn it a quarter turn, do the same thing. Grab it, pull it up, fold it over. I guess now you see why it's called stretch and fold. Okay, same thing on side number 3, and you'll see it's not stretching near as far. Stretch and fold. And side number 4, same thing. Stretch and fold. Okay, see, it does stick to your hand a little bit, but it washes off. Okay, now we're going to let it set for another half hour. Covering it, of course, keep it moist. I gotta wash before I can stretch that, otherwise it'll never stick. Alright, been a half an hour. We're going to do another set of stretch and folds. Like I say, you just take and take your fingertips, peel that away from the edge a little bit. And the more it sits, the less it sticks to the side of the bowl, so it's easier. Okay, then you pull up one side, stretch it, fold it over, try to get it off your hand, and you do this the 4 times again. There's 2. 3. Like I say, you can see it doesn't stretch much by the time you hit this 4th one. but you go through the motions. Alright, now from here you wait 15 minutes, do it one more time, and then you let it set the rest of your 4 hours. And it's almost 4 hours right on every time, so just figure on total of 4 hours. After the first half hour you do a stretch and fold. Half hour later you do another stretch and fold, and then 15 minutes after that one more. Alright, and you want to keep it covered so it doesn't dry out. Alright, it's been 4 hours. It's time to get these bread loaves into the pans. So with mine, my no-stick pans don't not stick anymore. So I'll oil them, put a little flour coating on, and they don't stick. I use the wheat flour because it's a little coarser. See? Alright, next we'll separate the dough and form it and put it in the pan. Alright, here we are. It's been 4 hours of sitting after our stretch and folds. Like I say, 3 of those. One after the first half hour. Half hour later you do one, and then 15 minutes after that. Now we want to separate the dough and put it in the pans. So same thing, just kind of use your fingertips, get the dough out. And it is a soft, moist dough. Go. It's a little hard to work with, but you work with it. Okay, then I'd split it into 2. Here, if you wet your fingers, keeps the dough from sticking as bad. Alright. Pick it up, and I roll it into the pan. fingers. Just kind of get it in there evenly, or halfway's even. Alright, so that one's done. And we'll do the next one. Whoops. All right. All right, something like that. All right, now these, you put your plastic wrap on top, put them in the refrigerator till tomorrow morning. Okay, good morning. We have our 2 loaves of bread. They've been in the refrigerator overnight. You can see I've got my razor blade. I don't have one of them fancy holders yet, but one of these days maybe somebody will gift one to me. Anyways, we have our oven preheated to 450. It's been, I don't know, about 45 minutes heating up, because you want a good even heat. There's my 2 loaves, pretty much about the same as when we put them in last night, which is typical, normal, because what you're doing is letting that yeast sit there inside the wild, or the sourdough, wild yeast, sit there and ferment and kind of build up its strength and flavor in these bread loaves. So what I do is I have a spray bottle. It's full of water, and I spray down these loaves, because I want the tops of them to slow down a little bit before while the pans heat up. At least that's the theory, I guess. And then myself, I like just a single cut, because most of my bread is just for personal use. We eat it and enjoy it. And I slice it right down the middle, nice and deep. Now you don't have to slice it, you can let it naturally break. A lot of people, what they'll do is, when they put it in the pan, after they've folded it over, they'll put the seam upside down and let it break naturally that way. Anything is perfectly fine, and you can play with it. Some people slice diagonal, some will put 2 or 3, some will put squigglies in there. The real people put art designs on there. Well, I'm not an artist, don't pretend to be, I don't play one on TV, none of that, so I do straightforward whatever. Alright, we're sliced. I also wash that blade off as soon as I'm done here, so that it doesn't gum up for the next loaves that you're doing. So anyways, we'll put her in the oven now and bake it at 450. In my metal pans, it takes 50 minutes. No. Yeah, 50 minutes. 40 minutes, I'm sorry. 40 minutes in my metal pans, 45 minutes in my glass pans. And these are a 5x8. I like them because they're a little narrower and they rise up so much better. My other ones are 5.5 by 9, I believe, and you get a flatter, wider loaf, but it all depends on what you like. So anyways, sliced, ready to go in. We'll see you in about 40 minutes. All right, we know what that is. Time to get that bread out of the oven. Let's see if she's done. Looks done. But for the beginners, if you don't know your time, you don't know whether it's done. Whoops, where are we? There we go. Meat thermometer. Works well. I take it. Yeah, let me get over here where you can see. And I just shove it down in there. Don't go all the way to the bottom. Just go into your bread loaf. And you want to take the temperature, just like you do when you're cooking meat. And the temperature of the bread, when it's done, should be right about 200, maybe a little bit more. Some people say 207, 205. If it hits 200 for me, I'm happy. And it looks like mine is not going to make it. I'm barely climbing up to 180 there. Might have to put her in for a few more minutes. Which happens. You know, the density, the amount of water you get in the loaf. These were a very heavy, wet loaf. So the amount of water makes a difference. So yeah, we're at 180. I think I'm going to put it in for about, let's say, 8 more minutes. And then we'll take it out and try it again. All right. All right, there we go again. It's been 8 minutes. Okay, let's see now what they look like. They look good. A little bit browner. Let's try this loaf here. There we go, at 140, keep right on rolling, 160, keep right on rolling. It's passing 180, passing 190. I think we're going to make it. Yep, we're coming right up. Right there's 200. It's just barely climbing by that, about 201, 202. So we're done there. All right. Now we want to put them on the cooling rack, get them out of these loaf pans. They are hot, remember. All right. Sometimes you have to give them a second to cool down. Yep. So we'll give them a minute here. Let them cool down and they should pop right out of there then. If not, we'll run a knife around the edge a little bit and that'll do the job. Okay, it's been a few minutes. Let's see if they'll pop out of here. Nope. Nope. Alright, so I take a table knife, just run around the outside edge. Ouch. The bread's still warm, the pan's okay, but I just run around the outside edge and break the crusty loose. There we go. How's that look to you? Huh? Alright, and then as a final step on these, I take some butter and you want to brush the top. What that does, it gives it a little softness, not so crunchy crust. I mean, it still is crunchy for you, but it makes it dark. Look at the darkness. It makes it look nice. It presents itself well. I think that's the main reason. There we go. Look at that. See how it darkens that loaf right up? And we'll put it on this loaf. Like I said, it presents itself very well this way. Plus, who can resist the taste of butter, right? There we go. Now, how's that look to you? Huh? 2 loaves of bread. Sourdough. And if you got that starter from me, fed it, made it rise, made it do its thing, there's the result. So anyways, we'll slice it open in a little bit, let it cool down, slice it open, show you what it looks like. But basically, we're done. But like I said, there'll be one more segment here that'll just show you what we've got. Okay, it's time. This is our bread. It's cooled down. I'm going to, well, let's cut a couple of chunks off here. Backwards, but the light I've got here would cause a shadow, so, well, maybe try it left-handed. There we go. Left-handed doesn't work so well for me, but it might work this time. Yeah. Okay, there's what we look like. Actually, maybe if I come around to this side, I can slice that baby off and you can see what it really looks like. Okay, yeah, that'll work better. Keep it nice and easy because it's kind of soft yet. There we go. Ooh, nice and soft. I think you guys will like that. Give it a try. And I just say thank you for watching. May God bless.